And we're going to spend the next 30 minutes walking through the entire timeline of how you would go from you're writing a book right now all the way up to launching it. And I really just want this to be as step-by-step as possible so that you know every little thing that you need to do and in what order to do them, because the order that you do these things in can have a big impact on how well your book does, basically. So like I said, we'll spend about half an hour on this. If I get through it quicker than that, I do have a bonus lesson that I want to share with you about using your book to build your email list. So hopefully we get to that, but I can't promise. And then once we get through this material, then we'll spend the last 10 or so minutes answering any questions that you have. All right. So I've broken this down into different time chunks. So first I'll share with you some things that you should do 6 months before your book launches, and then 3 months, 1 month, and so on. So 6 months before you launch. This is probably around the time when you are writing your book. Depending on how fast you're planning to write your book, you might just be barely starting to write your book. It might just be an idea even, or your book might be most of the way written. But first, you need to validate your book idea. So many authors skip this step, and it is just a bad thing to do. If you're writing a fiction book, a story, then it's a little bit harder to validate the book idea. But if you're writing a nonfiction book, you really need to figure out if there is even a demand for it. Is there already a lot of books like this? If there are those books good quality or bad quality? If they're bad quality and they're still seeming to be pretty popular and getting a lot of reviews on Amazon, that can tell you that people are really interested in this topic and there might be a hole in the market. If there's no books on Amazon, or there's only a few and they don't have very many reviews, then maybe people aren't really interested in this idea. Also, just going into those different groups, like I was saying much earlier on, a group about dog training or about nutrition, and then sharing your idea for a book and seeing what kind of response you get. So not saying, do you think this is a good idea? Say, I'm thinking about writing this as a book. Does this sound interesting to you? And then not seeing how many people say yes as opposed to no, but seeing how many people say anything at all. Okay, if you tell people about your book idea and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds good, or they don't say anything, then it's probably not going to be something that is very popular or very successful. But if you have a lot of interest, then that can be a good indication that people are actually interested in that topic. Fortunately, a book is normally a lower priced product, and so you don't normally have a huge difference between people who say it sounded interesting and the amount of people who actually buy. You're selling a more expensive product like a course or something like that, then you could have a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, that sounds good, but they don't want to pay $1,000 for it. But with a book, you don't have that problem so much. Okay, so 6 months out, after you've validated your book idea and you're writing it, if you're having trouble writing it, I'd highly recommend that you set a daily writing goal where you're writing 1,000 words a day or something like that. Just the most important thing at this point in time is that your book actually gets written. So whatever you need to do to get your book written, whether that's setting a daily writing goal or getting an accountability partner or starting to talk about your book on social media and doing a very slow, long pre-launch, but keeping yourself accountable at the same time. Plan when you're going to have your first draft completed, because A, this will make planning your launch so much easier, but B, it will help keep you accountable and give you a good timeline and a good deadline for when you need to have it done by. And make sure that you tell everybody you know once you've decided to write the book, because that will help to keep you accountable. Okay, so now 3 months before your launch, hopefully at this point your book is mostly, if not completely, written, because what you need to be working on now is doing editing and formatting and things like that. And those things can take a lot longer than you would like for them to take. I generally tell my clients that editing will take about 6 weeks. It could go a lot faster than that. It could take 1 week, but it also can go longer than that. But 6 weeks is like the normal, slightly long, slightly rounded up, overestimating amount of time for editing. We hope for 3 to 4 weeks, but 6 weeks certainly happens. So 3 months before your launch, your book needs to be pretty much done being written so that it can start being edited. At that point, if you're planning to use your book to be promoting your business at all, or to be building an email list, then you definitely should be adding a few pages to your book that promote some sort of bonus or free opt-in offer, something that people can go to your website to download so that you can get their email list and they can get some extra value. You also need to obviously get the editing done. I'm not going to go into depth on how to edit in this workshop today at all, or how to find an editor, but I do have a video that I will send to you after this is done that walks you through the process of how I found my editor and how I found a formatter for my book. But here we're just talking about the timeline. So 3 months before, you need to get your edits done, you need to get your formatting done. Make sure that you get it formatted properly, both for paperback and for Kindle. It will be 2 different file types, and they both need to be completely taken care of. Also, about 3 months before your launch is when you will be building up your launch team. So make sure that you start to talk to people. You've already told everyone you're writing your book, right? But now you're asking people. You're asking them for their help, and you're emailing all your contacts, you're direct messaging people on social media. You're doing everything that you need to do in order to build up this team that will be able to help you. This is also when you should definitely ramp up your social media activity and be sharing more and more and more about your process and asking for advice and opinions and doing polls, things like that. 3 months before is a good amount of time where it's enough before to build up significant momentum, but it's not so long before the people will get bored or forget about what you're doing before you actually get to your book launch. All right, so then another thing to do at 3 months out is you've got to plan your launch timeline and share it with your list. So I'm talking a blow by blow. This is like the schedule for your wedding or something like that. On this day at this time, this will happen. Like my draft will be done and I'll email you your copy to review. And then on this day at this time, such and such will happen. And then such and such will happen. So we're talking things like getting the review copy out, when the book will go live, when they can leave their review, when they should download it, when they should promote it. You need to tell them ahead of time everything that's going to go down so that they are prepared and able to help you, and so that they can let you know if they can't help you, just so that you're aware of what is happening and you're able to like compensate and work around if people can or can't help you. And then the third thing that you need to start doing 3 months ahead of time is emailing your list once a week. If you want to do it a little bit more or less, you certainly can, but once a week seems to be a very good medium amount of time, to where it's enough time that people don't feel overwhelmed or spammed at all, but it's a small enough amount of time that people don't forget who you are or forget what's going on in between your emails. All right, so that pretty much is everything you need to do 3 months before. And I did say this before, but pretty much all of this timeline is the checklist, the book launch checklist that I emailed to you before this class started. So find that email, and there will be a copy that you get also after the workshop is done. When you're seeing the replay, there will be access to that checklist also. But you don't need to take careful notes on this part because I have written all of this out for you, and you'll also obviously have the replay of this workshop. Okay, so then 1 month before you launch, you need to send the PDF copies of your finished book to your team. You might think, oh, people can read a book in a week, so I'll send them out a week before. But even if people can read a book in a week, A, some people read slower, and B, people have lives and they might not be planning their entire life around your book launch. So you do want to send it out 3 weeks or 4 weeks ahead of time so that they actually have time to get around to reading it. Okay, the next thing that you need to do 1 month before is submit your book to your publisher. You might even want to do this 6 weeks before, depending on who you're working with. But it takes longer than you might think, or longer than some websites lead you to believe, to actually get your book published, because even though after you submit it online to them, it could be published like 24 hours later, the reality is that you probably want to order an advanced paperback copy for yourself ahead of time, look at it, you're probably going to find tons of things that are wrong that somehow got missed in all the editing and formatting. You'll find pages that are formatted wrong. You'll find typos. And then you'll basically have to do a last minute round of editing and formatting. Then you will submit it again. You will want time to get another advanced copy mailed to you to make sure everything is right. Hopefully at that point it is, but you might even need to do that a third time. And just the shipping on the book each time is what takes the most amount of time, because it can take up to a week to get that copy of your book sometimes. So just make sure that you actually submit it to your self-publishing company at least a month before you're planning to launch. Okay, so once you have gotten those advanced copies and you've reviewed everything and you're ready to actually launch, then you will actually click the publish button about 1 week before you're planning to launch. The reason for this is because you want to make sure that everything is working right before you actually launch, because you wouldn't want to be sending traffic to a book that wasn't able to be downloaded or purchased, obviously. And you just want to make sure that everything is actually working right. When you do that, you want to set the price high. Like I said before, I'd recommend that you set it at $9.99, at least $6.99. Okay, don't cut yourself short here. If your book is like a full-length book, go with $9.99. If it's a shorter, like 100-page guide or something like that, then you should probably go with $6.99, just to be completely like fair and honest and not be misleading people about the book that they're getting at all. And then you want to schedule the Kindle free promotion to start on your launch day. So that's pretty straightforward. When you go into Kindle, I'll show you right now. Over here, we've got Kindle Direct Publishing, and I can click to sign in. And so once you have a book published in here, then you will see it down here under your books. Here's my book. And then you can click on Promote and Advertise. They make this extremely easy to do. And then you just scroll down here and you click to run a price promotion. And like I said before, there's two different kinds. One of them is a free book promotion, and one of them is a Kindle countdown deal. And so you want to go with the free book promotion, and you want it to go for 5 days starting on the day of your launch. The great thing about the free book promotion is that it can go for up to 5 days, but you can end it at any time. So you schedule it for 5 days. So it would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But then any day after 3 days, if it is starting to drop on the charts, the free charts, then you just end your promotion right then. The price bunks up to $9.99, but then you manually change it to 99 cents immediately. So what's good about that and how you should work this is you tell your email list, you tell your launch team, you tell everyone on social media, this book is free for 3 days. You're promising them at least 3 days, but at the end of 3 days, if it still has not hit, if it still is climbing and it hasn't fallen at all yet, then you can let it keep being free for another day. And you can just tell people, I've decided to give copies away for 1 more day. And that way you have that little bit of flex time, and it can make it work out a lot better. All right, so we're talking about 1 week before your launch. You have published your book at $9.99. You've scheduled a free promotion to start on your official book launch day. Then a week before, you ask your team to leave their reviews. I would recommend that you send out this email probably on like Monday of that week, and you ask them to leave their review on Friday or Saturday. You might want to send them a follow-up email on Friday and say, make sure you leave your review today or tomorrow. But these reviews are one of the most important ingredients in having a successful book launch. So the more people who you can get to leave reviews, the better your book will do for the entire life of your book. Also, if you just send them a blast via your email marketing program like MailChimp or whatever you're using, and you ask everyone, hey, it's time to go leave your reviews, like I said, you will get probably 40 or 50% of them to actually leave reviews, maybe even less, depending on how your email deliverability is doing. That just means like how many people are getting their emails in their inbox rather than their spam. But what you can do, and it is more than worth it, is to reach out to each person on your book launch team individually and ask them to leave a review. I recommend you do both. Send a big email blast, because that way you at least have the potential of reaching them all. But then spend all your time that week actually calling, texting, and emailing from your personal email account each of these people on your launch team and saying, hey, I noticed you haven't left a review yet. Please be sure to go do that because it would really, really help me out with my book launch that's happening on Sunday. Having that personal one-on-one connection, even and especially Facebook Direct Messenger is great for this. You will see a much higher rate of people actually go and leave you a review on your book. I didn't do very much one-on-one asking for these reviews with my book, but it's made a huge difference for a lot of my clients' books. Okay, and then still talking about that 1 week period before your launch, 2 or 3 days before your launch, I'd say probably 2 would be best, submit your book to the free submission sites. I'm not talking about the free Facebook groups, but the websites that promote the free books. You should do it about 2 days before so that they can see, they have time to review your book. You can look at the individual terms on them and they'll probably tell you how long it will be before, like between when you submit and when they actually start promoting your book. And you do need to pay attention to that because your free promotion is starting on the day that you're launching in most cases. If they have a short promotion window, you probably want to wait until right before or the day of your actual launch. If they have a longer review window, then you need to do it a couple of days beforehand because, like I said, you don't want them to be looking at your book if it's not the price that you are promising to them it will be. Okay, a lot of talking. You're making me do all the work over here. Okay, so then let's talk about launch day. So on launch day, your free promotion starts. Like I said before, your free promotion is actually a 5-day promotion. That's what you schedule on Kindle. But what you're telling everyone is it will be free for 3 days because that's all you're guaranteeing. Then you want to email your list 2 or 3 times on launch day. I feel like you can get away with this because like it's a big exciting day and people won't feel spam. They'll just be like, oh yeah, she's excited about her book. So email them once first thing in the morning and then once in the middle of the day and then once maybe in the evening, although not as many people check their email in the evening, obviously. The first time you want to be asking them to download. The second time you want to be asking them to promote. So if they haven't already clicked the Thunderclap link, then you want to ask them to share it with their friends, share it on social media. And then if you do email them one more time that day, or if you email them the next morning, then you should be asking them to leave their review if they haven't already, because you've already pestered them about that some, but when they see that your book is actually launching, then that can be a helpful impetus for them to actually take action and leave their review on your book. I would not recommend that you ask them to do multiple things in one email because that tends to overwhelm people and have them think, okay, I'll do that later because that's too much to do right now. If you give them one specific task and you tell them how long it will take, then they'll be a lot more likely to do it right then and just be like, oh, I can just click this button and click download. Okay, I'll do it. It's done. Rather than having them think, I'll do it later, and then maybe not doing it until after your launch is over. Okay, and then you want to be making sure that you post on all of your social media accounts. I'd recommend that you do this 3 or more times a day during the few days of your launch. Normally, that's way too much social media, at least for me. But when you have something special that you're promoting, you really can get away with it. You also want to be getting into all of those Facebook groups, those free Facebook groups, and promoting the heck out of your book. Most of them allow you to do this once per day. Some of them don't have a limit on it though. So do it at least once per day in all the groups that you've joined. Like I said before, join at least about 12 groups because there's no reason not to. It's completely free. And the more groups you join, the more downloads you can potentially get. And it can have a huge impact. I keep saying this, but it can have a huge impact on the whole life of your book. Okay, so make sure you continue to post on social media 3+ times per day throughout your entire free launch. I don't know if I said this exactly before, but I am talking through the free launch strategy right now because I assume that most of you this will be your first book, or at least you don't have a very big audience right now because that's, I asked a number of people who were going to participate how big of an audience they had, and they said they basically had no audience. So that's my assumption. but you can apply all the steps I said before this to a paid launch, and I did explain how a paid launch works. So, but we're focusing in on the free launch here. Okay, so then on the last day of the free promo, drop the ebook price to $9.99 so that you don't kill the momentum you've gained. So when you decide I'm switching to paid, just make sure you do not switch it to paid at $10 or at $7 or even $4, because when people are looking on those free charts and they see a book that actually costs money, then if your book costs $5, they're going to be like, what's this book doing here? But if your book costs 99 cents, they'll just think like, oh, well, that's hardly anything. And it's probably on here because it's a good deal. That's not actually why it's on there. Obviously, it's on there just because you only just switched it. But when they see that 99-cent price book, they're a lot more likely to actually still download it, even though it costs a little bit of money, because who cares about 99 cents, right? Okay, so that pretty much sums up launch day. If you have any questions about it, make sure you pop them in the chat so that I can answer them when we get to the end. Now, there are a few things, though, you need to do after the launch, and these are very important as well. Thing number one is you need to gradually raise the price each week. You do not want to be participating in the commodity market of cheap and free ebooks in the long run, because it's a great launch strategy, but it's a terrible long-term strategy, because if your book stays at 99 cents or $1.99 or $2.99, then it is just seen as a cheap book that probably isn't even worth someone's time. So ironically, you will probably get the same number of downloads with a $8.99 book as you would with a $1.99 book, but you'll make a lot more money for every sale with an $8.99 book. And the reason for that is just that if it's $1.99, people will see it as probably a waste of their time, probably not very good quality, not even worth clicking the button to download, even though they don't actually care about the $2 that it costs. So work your price up starting a week after your launch if you're using the free launch, or 3 weeks after your launch if you're using the paid launch. But make sure that you do consistently increase your price until you reach the price that you are hoping to sell your book for. When you're doing the free launch, this is after the launch we're talking about. You've had it free for 4 days, let's say, and then you increase it to 99 cents, then start promoting it on the deal book sites. Submit your book to all those deal book sites that promote the 99-cent books and all the books that are on sale, basically. And you can take advantage of that all over again and get a whole bunch more downloads that you weren't getting previously because your book had been free, but now it's paid. Create great bonus materials for your readers. So if you asked people to opt into your list in your book somewhere, then you need to follow up with those people who sign up for your email list. Don't have people just sign up and then not ever talk to them again. So start creating blog posts or videos or something to keep in touch with these people and to actually develop a relationship with them so that you can have them as your customers in the future, or they'll buy your books in the future, something to build up a relationship with them. So make sure that whether you're giving them some big piece of content or not, whether it's like a blog post or a free download or something, you still want to email them every week so that you can continue to be on their radar, so that whenever you do want to sell something else in the future, whether it's another book or your services, you are able to actually get in touch with them and they haven't forgotten who you are. And then finally, you want to schedule as many activities to share your message as possible. You've put everything you have into giving your book a successful launch, and that gives it a lot of momentum and a lot of visibility right off the bat. But in order to keep the sales coming in, actually, let me back up and not say that. You will, if you give your book a good launch, you will continue to see sales. At least that has been the experience of me and all of my clients, that the sales continue to come in. But it will go from like this huge launch spike to like this steady little trickle, which is good, but it could be better. So once you've done that launch, then start applying to podcasts to be a guest on, TV, local TV to be a guest on, blogs to guest post on, speaking engagements that relate to your book, There are so many opportunities that open up to you when you're an author, and there's no reason to not take advantage of them, because it can directly affect your book sales. It can affect your blog and how your blog traffic is doing. It can help your business make more sales, and it can also help to just increase your exposure as an author, so that if and when you do come out with another book, you have a much easier time promoting it, and you can do a paid launch if you want.